Welcome to the City Rev Life Podcast. My name is Robey, and I'm here with Dr. Tariq King, who is an expert on, I say an expert. Can I say expert?
You can say an expert. I don't know if it'll be true.
I'm going to say expert. His expertise is in artificial intelligence, and you speak all around the world on this subject. And so thank you for speaking into your church family on this subject matter of some of the, I think it's safe to say some of the bleeding edge advancement of our time, right? In artificial intelligence. Is that fair?
Yeah, fair. I mean, I think AI is everywhere and it's moving quicker than we've ever seen it move before, exponentially. So definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have, in this short series on AI, we have talked about just kind of an intro to it. In the last episode, we talked about some of the opportunities, and there's a call for believers to be city changers in the space of science and technology and innovation and with AI, which we want. And that our default stance is for technology and innovation because we're made in the image of God. So we should always have a default pro stance towards innovation. At the same time, we do need to always be aware that there's going to be a shadow side to innovation. In the same way we are going to use it for good, there's going to be ways it's going to be used for evil. And there's always a history of believers using technology for good, but there's going to be ways that we have to be ready that it's going to be used for evil. So we've talked about some of the opportunities, and really they're endless opportunities and endless positives for AI. But let's just, in your mind, what are some of your top AI concerns?
Sure. And as there are endless positives, there are probably endless negatives as well. I think for me, kind of thinking about the human side of AI is where I tend to start, right? Like what impact is AI going to have and the interactions of AI going to have on human beings, right? There's a whole kind of area that I first started out investigating in AI around bias, right? Or basically fairness in AI machine learning systems. So is the system going to work the same for someone that looks like you versus someone that looks like me? And if it doesn't, is it going to put us in situations where we've now put a group that has been already disadvantaged at further disadvantage? And those are kind of like, things that we have to kind of take very close to the heart when we're designing or building AI machine learning systems, because ultimately, like, we're integrating these things into society. Our kids are growing up with these systems available to them on their smartphones or in their homes, and we're interacting with them every single day. So bias is a huge thing.
Which is so interesting, because I think, at least my initial thought would be, if you're having a computer running a system, you would think it would removing those biases, but when you realize that it's humans who designed it, then you realize that they can be baking some of those biases and basically wiring them into the system. Is that right?
Yeah, it's exactly because the way that machine learning systems are trained is for humans to feed them examples of things, right? And so when you look at a data set that's being used to train a new machine learning model, that data set could be balanced, right? They could have representation from different groups, or it might not be. It might be totally unbalanced, right? There was a tech giant who won't go by name who had started leveraging AI machine learning in the early, I think this was back in 2004, to determine candidates for a job. And this was tech jobs, and the AI started discriminating against women for tech positions. And why was that? When you look back at the training data, well, it was mainly males that were fed in terms of their resumes to this system. The system was not taught to kind of ignore that attribute. And so, of course, it would see a female name and reject it, right? Now, luckily, they shut that down quickly. But that's kind of just like a quick example back from 2 decades ago where we were thinking about bias in AI, and now it's kind of gone to a larger scale.
And I think also there are examples where they're taking in information from human behavior, and they're picking up on just biases that are in just humanity.
Yeah. There was cases of a chatbot that was kind of let loose on Twitter and started learning derogatory terms and learning racial slurs. So, the machine is still doing what you tell it to do. It's kind of just learning that using information and using data. So it's kind of scary.
So the chatbot, let's pause on that one for a second, because that's an incredible story. So what's a chatbot?
So a chatbot is basically an AI that's built to have a natural language conversation with another human or another machine. Typically, you see them being used in areas like telemarketing or tech support or any kind of support system, right? So those bots basically have a dialogue, right? ChatGPT is a chatbot, one of the most famous chatbots that we know of. But again, they can be tailored to specific tasks.
Okay, so they deployed this chatbot, and it was for Twitter.
Yeah, it was on Twitter.
It
wasn't necessarily for Twitter. It was actually built by Microsoft.
Okay.
But it was deployed on Twitter, and what happened was, we're trying to not blame the chatbot. People started interacting with the bot and passing it racial slurs, and of course, it learned those racial slurs. Right. So the thing is, once you deploy something out there, right, and in that case, and there's guardrails around this stuff now, but those things being kind of like, let's just put the bot out there and it can learn whatever. Well, someone might teach it the wrong thing, and we have to have those protections in place to prevent that.
And it's taking in so much data and spitting out so much data that it's learning at an unimaginable rate. It's just drinking in whatever it's fed. And so
I think, like, unlike traditional software, right? With traditional software, you kind of test it and then you release it. With these things, you do some testing beforehand. But the fact is that it can change its behavior at runtime while it's out there operating. So it's already released, right? So who's governing who's governing that process? We govern that process when we have control over the release. Now it's out there. Yeah. It's just learning.
So what, and I was thinking, just from my perspective as a pastor, so someone engaging something like ChatGPT, so they're asking it questions and giving it feedback. There's no such thing as a worldview vacuum. Like, you can't not have a worldview. So at some point, AI is going to develop some sense of worldview. It may not have the same ethical senses totally, but at some point it's going to frame up its understanding of truth. It has to, I would think, right?
Yeah. And this is actually like anything else. If you start to think about the world and how the media might be controlled in some places, AI is going to be kind of like the next version of all that, right? So it definitely will have a view. The question is which view and who fed that view, right?
Sure.
I'm sure it's not going to just be allowed to take up any view possible. I think that there will be guardrails around it.
Right.
But whoever is regulating AI and machine learning systems have also the opportunity to feed it with their worldview, right? And have that be something that's propagated.
Yeah. So that a key reason for believers to step into this space and help put up guardrails that represent justice and righteousness, where it's catching things like bias and can stand up for justice, but it's also catching things like worldview and standing up for understandings of truth and biblical understandings of truth in a way that's appropriate. And so needing people in there to shape that. So there's some concern in the human side. You spoke about bias. What are some of the other concerns for AI?
So I think the big thing that people are worried about, some very, very smart people are very worried about AI actually taking over the world.
I was hoping we were going to get to this, because can we talk about, like the Matrix, possibility? Like, is this a real, so you are here, scientist, you work in this field. I know what we talk about, us lay people talk about AI and science fiction, but in your field, among other experts, what are they like? Is that a real thing?
Definitely a real thing. And there's, again, some of the brightest people that I've met that have a real concern about this. And I agree with that concern, in that there's a whole realm of, intelligence out there. And in the narrow space, like when we start talking about narrow intelligence, it's that an AI bot can actually just do like one task very well. And we've been doing that. We've seen many examples of that. But then there's the world of artificial general intelligence, where AI and machine learning systems are more like humans in that they have these general cognitive functions, right? And they can learn like humans can and exhibit, these higher order intelligent behaviors beyond a single task. And then the question becomes now, okay, we have narrow intelligence, general intelligence. Can we reach a level of super intelligence where the machines actually surpass us as humans? And yeah, like the Matrix, then maybe we just all become batteries, right? or worse yet, thinking of the Terminator, and there's a total annihilation. Now we know that the world doesn't end that way, but this is a concern that people generally have, is that the machines actually surpass us as humans and start doing really bad things.
Okay. So now that I'm terrified, what literally, as responsible scientists in this field, how are you approaching that question, and what's being done so that we don't have a Terminator situation?
Yeah. So, I mean, I this is something that I think I've even talked to you in the past about, like, as I was deep in kind of innovation in this field, and I'm going forward, I'm thinking as a Christian, I'm praying every time, like, Lord, don't let me contribute to some, crazy event, right? But then you still have to sit and think, well, yes, people are going to use this technology for good. The technology itself may surpass, but, the Lord is still on the throne ultimately.
That's right.
But yeah, to me, that there's certain things that we will have to kind of really think about in terms of regulation at a large scale level, right? A lot of the tech giants are all talking about regulatory and compliance and governance issues around AI and ethical AI, responsible AI, and also explainable AI, right? Can the AI actually give a reason for why it did something, right? So that we can get down to the root cause of what is going on. I am more, quite frankly, worried about AI machine learning systems that purposely try to deceive, right? I've not seen it happen. I've seen AI make mistakes, right? ChatGPT is fallible; it makes mistakes, and I'm fine with that if it admits those mistakes. Hey, this looks like it was a problem or not, but it's another level to actually try to deceive us as humans. So regulation is definitely a big thing there. I think having the right people in these areas spread across, because AI is going to be across multiple domains. So, people who will speak up and who will and try to innovate in ways that we can actually protect AI from taking over, so to speak, right? Part of it is a built-in design thing, and another part of it is, well, once it's out there, how can we control it?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear how that discussion is going, but I really like what you're saying about we know who's on the throne.
Yeah.
And so we just can't operate out of a spirit of fear. And what happens if the enemy can make us afraid, then we retreat from something, but we've been sent into the world. So we're sent. Jesus says, in the same way the Father sent him into the world, this is John 17, he's sending us into the world. And so we've got to go into the messy spaces. We got to go in the messy spaces of AI where there's concerns, but there's also opportunities. And we have to do what we can to regulate the concerns, mitigate the concerns, but also seize the opportunities for the gospel. And so we've got to step into both of those spaces for sure.
Yeah, and I think that I think that it's kind of like this symbiotic relationship between the two. Like, there is definitely some fears, but those fears can drive opportunities to innovate and find solutions for those things. And I think we need to be at the forefront of those innovations as well.
Well, I think that's great. Well, Tariq, thanks for being a city changer and in that space. And I really hope that this inspires many others in the City Rev family to, whether you're in the tech industry or not, or you're in the discussion of AI or not, but wherever you're at, there's going to be a messiness in wherever you're called into, even just into our families and neighborhoods and friend groups, social media. I mean, there's messiness, but we're not called to retreat. We're called into the city to step in there and be salt and light for good. And so I hope that this has been a helpful, interesting discussion for you about Christians and AI. If we can step into that space, there's any other space that we can and should step into for the sake of the gospel and revealing Jesus, because if we reveal Jesus, it revolutionizes our city. So thanks for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much for listening to the City Rev Life Podcast. Feel free to subscribe or leave a rate and review. If you want more content or additional resources, head to cityrev.org or download our app. We hope you have a great day.